Joining us now is political analyst and professor of global futures at Curtin University, Joe Siracusa. It's good to see you, Joe. How do you reflect on the life and presidency of Jimmy Carter?
Good morning, Kenny. Look, it's very sad his passing. I remember him well. He was just the kind of I think Band-Aid America needed between Watergate and Vietnam in the 1970s. He came along when America was hurting and bleeding, and he brought a great deal of stability and calm to the situation. Now, of course, these are rough times. There were all kinds of depression in the United States, and there's all kinds of trouble in the Middle East and other places. And Carter, he did as well as he could, but he couldn't outsmart the Soviets in Afghanistan. He couldn't outrun the problems in Europe with the INF Treaty and the rest of it. So, look, he had his problems, but look, he was a wonderful fellow. Now, a couple things your audience should understand about him. He was not only the longest-lived president, but he was the longest-married president of the United States. This guy actually looked quite normal. This is the kind of normality Americans are used to in a president. And the other thing, too, is, Kenny, he came out of nowhere. This idea that a governor from Georgia could just say one day, I'm Jimmy Carter, and I'm running for president of the United States. Most Americans had never heard of this guy. Southern governors weren't exactly knocking down the door of the White House. And he proved that, if you can put yourself out there, and he had a good team, and he used the media very well. And also keep in mind that he was the only submariner we've ever had in the White House. So this is a guy who spent a lot of his career in a submarine, so he actually knew what it was all about. But I think it's very sad that his passing. And it also reminds us that America is capable of voting for a guy who looked pretty much normal. The next guy that came along, Ronald Reagan, said that Carter was going to get us in World War III because he was weak, particularly as a result of trying to get those hostages out of Iran. And of course, he had every right to go to war with Iran for taking those hostages on at the American embassy, but he didn't. He wouldn't do it. And so Reagan argued that Carter wouldn't take the shot if he had to, and so he was very dangerous. And of course, the American people responded to that fear by giving, I think, President Reagan, 49 states in that particular election in 1980. I just think it's a very sad passing, and it's a reminder that America can sometimes handle that job pretty well and be respected everywhere. And this guy, he went to see Castro in Cuba. He had Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat around the table at Camp David. This is magic, Kenny. This ability to get these people in the same place. This would be magic today, as a matter of fact. And I know he had some hard views about people. And just finally here, when I was on leave at Harvard in 1980s, I ran across Malcolm Fraser looking for a ride. He was the Australian Studies professor at Harvard there, and he spoke very kindly about his time with Jimmy Carter. And so, your little comment, your story, your package there is absolutely correct. Prime Minister of Australia and Jimmy Carter got along just fine.
Yeah. Look, he had a keen intellect, but the world is a very different place today than what it was in the late 70s. Could a Jimmy Carter be elected today, or does the world need a Jimmy Carter right now?
I think he can be elected. Keep in mind that the American people can do 180 degrees. Ronald Reagan could yield one person, and Obama can yield a different kind of person after him. The American people can go back and forth. But look, today's times are a little different. That is, they are very rough and tumble politics. Carter didn't want to get into the gutter with other people. But I'll tell you what, he had a crew around him that was as tough as anybody else. They could play hardball. And he used to tell his staff, don't have affairs, don't get in trouble. And my favorite story is one night after he went to bed, he got up to look for the ham that they had earlier in the day in the White House kitchen. So, he was frugal indeed. He was always looking for leftovers for his midnight snacks. So he was quite a character. But look, he went on to have a distinguished career. afterwards. Most presidents, of course, don't build houses for poor people, but he did, and he had a lot to say to us. And I'll tell you what, the United States can has enormous talent in different places that can always come to the fore when we need it. So I think it's important to realize that Jimmy Carter is sort of to me, he's sort of a brilliant maybe. Maybe if he'd had a second term, he could have cleaned up a few issues. But I'll tell you what, he gave the world a little safer place when he left than when he entered.
Joe Siracusa, appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.